Joining us right now is a man who knows what Obamacare will do to business because he is a very successful businessman and a candidate for the presidency, and someone I really support because of all the candidates on the Republican side, Herman Cain is the only one that I know of who produced a product or a service that is of any value whatsoever. And so without further introduction, we introduce to the Savage Nation candidate Herman Cain, and it's a real honor, sir. Thanks for being with us.
Mr. Savage, Michael, this is Herman Cain. Thank you. And let me just say, based on your introduction, I fought Hillary Care back in the early 1990s, and Obamacare is worse. So this judgment, this ruling by the 11th Circuit Court, the 11th Court, is absolutely news to my ears and the news to every business person in America. Because like you said, this is a job killer. But, you know, the liberals, they don't care about jobs. They only care about their agenda. So thank you for having me on, Michael.
Well, okay, let's start with the top of the discussion. You know, you have the Republican candidates vying for to come out in the front of the field. And I'm not trying to trounce the others, but amongst all of the candidates, Mr. Cain, you seem to be the only one who stands out in terms of actual business experience. I do know that Mr. Romney ran an investment firm. That is true. But in terms of product, I'll take a pizza over a fiduciary instrument any day.
You know, you're right. And the difference is I actually made a pizza in the restaurant before I ran the company. I actually made a Whopper before I ran 450 Burger King restaurants.
Wait, are you saying you actually were a pizza maker?
Yes, because my philosophy whenever I took over a new business was to learn how that business works from the most fundamental, basic level. I actually went into the restaurant and went through some training for a couple of days so that if I'm making these decisions out of my executive office, I know what I was talking about. I did the same thing at Burger King. I ran a Burger King restaurant before they made me a vice president, even though I had already been a vice president at Pillsbury before.
Interesting.
My philosophy is just real simple. If you want to know how to solve a problem or you want to better understand the business, get down there and get your hands dirty and do it for a while so you can better understand it. And this is the difference between my business experience and Mitt Romney's candor, because I've not only run small businesses, medium-sized businesses, saved businesses, started businesses, I've actually made the sandwiches and made the pizzas. And that's the difference between the kind of business experience that I have.
Well, look, fiscally, you're a real conservative, and Mr. Romney, and I think he's a wonderful man. I had dinner with him a year and a half ago. He won't acknowledge it today. This is typical of so many politicians. I'm pretty sure if you and I sat down over a pepperoni, you wouldn't hide it the next day. And I hope we can do that one of these days. No, in San Francisco. But he won't acknowledge he had dinner with me. And the interesting thing is he's a very nice man. He's personable. He has a wonderful background. He has wonderful family, honestly. However, he's not a true Republican in the sense of a conservative. He's a liberal Republican on the order of a Rockefeller or even a Bush one, truthfully. And that's not what America needs now, in my estimation.
I think you're absolutely right. You know, with all due respect, look, I don't have anything against Mitt Romney, but the difference is, the first difference is what I just described. My business experience has been more hands-on throughout my 40-year career, no matter which job I held. Secondly, I came from very humble beginnings, and I don't have any hard feelings against people who came into a good situation when they were born.
No, neither do I. I'm nothing against people who inherit money. God bless them. You know what I'm saying? I hope I leave my children and children's children something.
But see, the thing is, I had a very humble beginning, so I can better relate to the people that are struggling, because my mom was a domestic worker. My dad was a chauffeur and a barber, and he held jobs that he needed to do in order to get by. So I can identify better with the people who are almost unemployed. I can better identify with the people that are unemployed. I've got relatives that can't find a job because of this sorry, lousy economy, so I can identify more with that. And so,
Mr. Cain, let me. I'm curious now. You've got my curiosity. And first, let's stick to the presidential thing, because I'm trying to think of my audience and of my own interests at the same time. How did you actually begin in the corporate world? How did you climb the ladder?
when I graduated from college in 1967, I was one of the first ones in my family to ever graduate from college. Went to work for the Department of the Navy as a mathematician. I was a mathematics and physics major.
Whoa. Well, now, why don't we know that? Why doesn't America know that Herman Cain was a mathematician?
And guess what I worked on when I first got out of college? Fire control ballistics for fire control systems on our naval ships and on our naval aircraft. I was a fire control systems ballistics analyst when I first got out of college because of my mathematics and physics background.
That's
and
amazing.
That,
no, but you see, I didn't know that. Here I have you on my show, so everyone knows the number one, African-American businessman, but they don't talk about your educational experience or your background. Why? Because it doesn't fit the stereotype, I guess, huh?
No, it doesn't fit the stereotype. They don't want to talk about my background and know that I can count, know that I have an analytic mind, although I can communicate with people. And then after being a ballistics analyst for fire control systems for 6 years with the Department of the Navy. I wasn't in the Navy. I was a civil servant for 6 years. Then I went into the corporate world, worked at Coca-Cola, then Pillsbury, and I was able to climb the corporate ladder at Pillsbury to become a vice president. Then I went over to Herman Cain with a career change to get into the restaurant business, and I had to climb that corporate ladder. And eventually, because of all of that success, Pillsbury appointed me president and CEO of Father's Pizza. Because of that job, I then later was asked to become head of the National Restaurant Association, which today is the second largest employer in the country next to government.
That's amazing. Well, no, I understand who they are. They lobby for businesses, rightly so. I have friends in the restaurant business in San Francisco who have warned me for years. Do you know what they've done in taxing restaurants in San Francisco? They've added do you know that they've added a medical tax to the sales tax in San Francisco, 1% on top of everything to pay for health care in that city?
They don't know anything else to do, Michael, except tax, and spend. This is what's wrong. You are absolutely right. And the same mentality has gone to Washington, D.C., which is one of the reasons that I decided to run for president. I never wanted to run for president. This wasn't a lifelong dream.
Right.
I have done this because this country has been good to me. And from my humble beginnings, I have been able to achieve my American dreams and then some. But I feel a responsibility because I've got 3 grandkids, and I'm thinking about all of the other little faces out there, and what are we going to leave to them? And so this is why I decided to run for president.
Well, you and I resonate. We're almost the same generation. We are within a few years of college graduation, so I assume we're in the same age bracket. We see the world probably through the same eyes. My father was not a college graduate. He was an immigrant and all of that, and he struggled. I saw what it did to him, struggling. Okay, but he taught me the work ethic, so I relate to you. But when I watch you and I listen to you, I look past the stereotype that I'm supposed to see, okay? Because it's very easy to dismiss you. And, people are going to dismiss you, say, oh, he's a black guy, so they moved him up. That's not true. They should understand what your background is. And I'm trying to say to you, I would emphasize my mathematical background. In an age of numbers where the numbers are being juggled by the phonies on Wall Street, your ability in physics and mathematics should be paramount in any discussion. You could run rings around the other candidates.
That's a good suggestion. That's a very good suggestion. I guess because of my, in all honesty, because of my humility, I don't fill it up. But, you make a very good point. A lot of people don't know that, and if I don't bring it out, then a lot of the listeners won't.
But listen, I swear to you, we're talking as though we're sitting in a restaurant together, which is what I tend to do on a national radio show with millions of listeners. But, Mr. Cain, you're running for the presidency. I watched you, and I said, this man, he talks the talk, but he's also walked the walk in order to talk the talk. And now I learned that you were a mathematics major in college, which is no mean achievement. That's a tough one. I know what it means to be a physics and mathematics major. That's a tough road to go down. And I would suggest in any debate, I think you ought to remind people of that. Now, it's true that Miss Bachman was a tax attorney to her credit. However, people should know what your background is.
That's a good point. And by the way, my mathematics and physics degree was from Morehouse College, but I have a master's in computer science from Purdue University. I just thought I'd throw that in, Michael.
No, keep going. I think America's going to be pleasantly introduced to the new Herman Cain, because you're a humble man. I can see that in your demeanor, and the way you present yourself. I say to myself, God, What if he really gets, look, it's very early on in the campaign, and people are trying to decide who they want to bet on which horse. And a lot of people say, I don't know, I like Herman Cain, but I don't know because he can't win. What do you mean he can't win? You certainly could win.
That's right. In fact, if they go to my website, HermanCain.com, HermanCain.com, they'll be able to look up more information on me and about me and see what my background is. They'll also be able to see many of the speeches that I have given across the country. When you're watching the debate, you're only going to get a snapshot of an individual. In that debate last night that was on TV, I actually was on camera front and center for about 7.5 minutes out of all of those minutes because they were more interested in creating cat fights between some of the candidates that allowed the American people to really learn something about what you would do. And so I encourage people to go look at my website where they can learn more about my views, my ideas, as well as my background.